Arigoth, indie 2D RPG developed by me, is still going. It's been a month since my last devlog, but that's because I've been doing crazy amounts of learning. As somebody who's new to coding, there has been a couple of parts of the project I knew were going to be overwhelming, and they are nearing completion, which I'm like, I couldn't be happier about. So let's dive into it. This is the third devlog, so thanks for checking it out. And yeah, let's get straight into the game engine. If you guys don't know, I'm developing this game in Godot, which to me has been an absolutely amazing engine to end up using. In the past, I was using a little bit of Unity, but I decided at a certain point to transition over, and it's been really smooth, and I enjoy the coding language and just kind of everything about it. It's been great. So let's kind of check out what's been going on since last time. If you kept up with the last videos, a couple of things that I had mentioned wanting to accomplish. There were a couple of goofy small things, and there was one overarching really big thing, which to me has been the most difficult but the most rewarding process, and that is making the inventory system function in all the ways I expect it to as somebody who loves RPGs. So we are at least 90% there. Let me go ahead and just open up the game and show you what I'm talking about. So straight off, you're going to see a lot of changes. We're going to get to each of them. There's like a ton to go over, but I want to start with kind of the most, I'll call it back-end thing, because it's very non-visual. It's very, very heavy in stuff happening behind the scenes. But as a player, I think you would probably just expect it to occur. So let's walk over. We're going to grab one of these stamina potions, couple of these health potions, which you're going to notice straight away, these are new items. And they have a function now, by the way. There are a couple more in this grave that we dig up. So let's go ahead and open up the inventory. When we do end up opening the inventory, one of the things that happens, so first, the inventory actually ends up pausing the game in the background, save for a couple of UI items. So things like the health and stamina bar aren't going to auto regen, which would kind of give you the ability as a player to hop into the inventory system, allow the game to pause in the middle of a boss fight, and then just like get all of your stamina and health back. But they do need to be on to a degree to where you would be able to take a stamina potion or take a health potion and see that they have taken their effect. So that gets straight into a couple of the things that I have in the inventory system. One of them is an info panel. So let's check out the stamina potion. Straight off in the kind of top left-hand attachment of the inventory box. I don't know, there's so many containers, man. It's so hard to decide what to call each thing. But let's call this the info panel. So the info panel pops up when you hover an item, and that works for the stamina potion and the health potion. I just kind of expect a thing like this to be there. It's nothing crazy special, but I'm really proud to be able to sort out how to make these and make these modular systems that just work for all items. So health potion, it's consumable, and it gives you 25 health, similar for the stamina potion. The next thing that I want to be able to do straight away outside of just using an item is to be able to drop it. So I want to cover that really quick. You can do it two different ways. So the first one is that you can right click and drop an item, and it just pops out one at a time down onto the world. If you want to get rid of everything at one time, that should also be an option you have. So you can click, drag, and just click out on the world, and you drop everything in its stack. So that also works for the health potions. And there they are. They kind of scatter randomly. I'm playing with the idea of a system where the items will like push each other away, and also playing with the idea of having magnetic sort of pickup, auto pickup for the player be something that you can enable and disable. So let's pick these things back up so I can show you some of the other functions. Okay, cool. Got these 3 and 3 back. Again, the game pauses when you open the inventory, mitigating a couple of potential bugs for me, and then at the same time allowing kind of like breathe room for you to check out what's going on in your inventory and think about your next move without hopefully giving too much advantage to the player. This does create a potential issue if I were ever to consider multiplayer or co-op for the game. This is not a function that would work in those circumstances, but as it stands right now, I think I'm going to keep it in and just like take feedback on it and see what you guys think. So with that in mind, the info panel is there, and when I right-clicked, I didn't really mention the name of this thing, which is the usage panel. Really, really simple. Obviously, it's just use or drop a thing. You can drop things one at a time right here, and of course you can use them one at a time as well. So if I hit my magic ouchie button, which because I don't have enemies, I had to make an ouchie button, goofy, but that is the middle mouse click for me for right now. That's the ouchie. That takes some of our health away, and then we can display that we right-click and use. Some of that health comes back, and so I'll sidebar here into another UI item which wasn't there previously, the health and stamina. I decided that I wanted kind of a circular look to the health bar and a circular look to the stamina bar, but it kind of fills in the opposite way, so it just goes top to bottom. So check this out. As I run around, the stamina bar drains out. And then if you look, it has gone from the top to the bottom or bottom to top. Why can I not think of the word vertical? So they work in kind of opposing ways. One's radial, the other's just like this linear up and down. I think I like that. It's something I've been experimenting with the idea of a couple different ways, but I've landed on this one. I'm curious what you guys think. So same thing as I was doing before, off of this sidebar of kind of what the UI for health and stamina looks like. Let's go ahead and show it working. So if I right click and use the stamina potion, we refill. We can refill again. So if I were to try and use the stamina potion, we can't because it's full. So that's again something that's like small, but you just kind of expect it to be there. It was really important to me that a lot of these sort of expectations are met. They're basic, but being new to coding, hard to figure out. I'm really happy with them though. So same deal with the health. Our health is full, thus we can't take a health potion. What else? Let's kind of take a look at, here, let me grab this one. Splitting stacks was another thing. And this is a more restrictive method, but one I think in the context of my game will be fine, which is that you just split stacks of items, meaning you have more than one, in half, rather than being able to singularly select how many you want to split in any given separated stack. That's a for now thing, and unless somebody tells me it's an inconvenience, I probably won't add it, though I think I understand how I can. So let me show you splitting stacks as it stands. So right now, if you shift and left click, it will automatically put one item or one stack in your hand and then take the other and just find an empty slot and stick it there. So you can see it jumped over our stamina potion and went into another empty slot, and then we can restack things and it updates and we are back to having a stack. This works obviously regardless of what number of items you have. Okay, so we have 3 and 3 again. So let's go ahead and shift click and you can see it splits. Shift click, it splits. Same deal here, same deal here. And so yeah, you can split stacks. Another expectation that I just kind of have when I open an inventory system, swapping places with items. Being able to click on a occupied slot and swap out the item that you have in hand. So anytime we're in this mode, I call it item in hand, and making sure that the item kind of follows the cursor around was also important to me. Just being able to obviously organize. These sound super basic, but it was just one of those things where it's an expectation that I have in an RPG that I had to figure out from scratch, and I'm just happy that I've got it functioning. The next bit of that would be stop holding a thing without having to re-click. If you're holding an item and you want it to return to the slot it was in, I have a cool little animation that plays. So if I right click while I'm out here, just zips back over from wherever into the correct slot. And if for some reason that previous slot was occupied like so, it finds the next available empty one. I think that kind of covers all of the inventory stuff. So let's go ahead and move on to the next part of that, which is actually the hotbar system, a directly adjacent system that you can obviously see right now in the upper left-hand corner. So if you look in the inventory, you can see that these 4 slots are slightly more separated from the bottom 8 slots. We have 4 that are kind of separated from these 8, and that is to indicate that these are our hotbar slots. Anything that you put in these slots are reflected up in the upper left-hand corner as being your hotbar items. It was important to me to make sure that I have some form of a hotbar in the game. I'm still not completely certain how extensive of a functionality I want it to have, because there are a couple different things that I could restrict it to as far as like items and usage, and maybe I could even separate it from the inventory to be its own thing, but I'm also kind of liking keeping it really simple like this. So I think we may just leave it in here. Again, this is something I'm open to commentary on, so we'll see what everybody thinks really. So anywhere that you end up placing within these top 4 bars ends up going into the hotbar slots. You can kind of tell it's a little bit subtle intentionally. I don't want it to be too distracting, but I have a selector here, and as I'm scrolling with the mouse wheel or on a controller, it would be using the left and right D-pad, you can see that selector changes, and then I have a usage button, so you can just go ahead, let's get our ouchie button going, and then we'll take a health potion with F, and so that's use, and that just uses the item within the hotbar. It's going to be cool to have items outside of consumables like potions or food, tools, possibly to do something like, you know, I dug up this grave earlier. So perhaps if you have a shovel, you'll see like a cool little animation playing of him actually digging. Lots and lots of possibilities. Obviously, almost every interactable part of the game can potentially be tied into the inventory system. So we'll see how those things end up playing in over time. But hotbar system, super straightforward, and this kind of leads to controller compatibility being the next topic, and it's like 90% there. Here's basically why it's not 100% right now. This little selector is going to be my sort of modular tool to take and use within the inventory. This selector will enable us to, instead of, for a person that doesn't have a mouse and keyboard, when you open up the inventory and the game detects that you're using a controller, you'll see a selector just like this in the inventory, highlighting a slot so that you can move around the inventory, grab things, put them down, do all the things that you expect. So that's kind of the final functionality that I'm saving for a little bit further down the road, so I have a lot of certainty with where the inventory system is before I implement it. I just want everybody to know the controller compatibility to me, because, I mean, first and foremost, honestly, because my wife plays with controller, it's like a peak priority to me. So controllers will, as soon as the game releases, be instantly compatible, and hopefully that ends up being a really good thing as well for maybe the potential of like handheld compatibility in the future. So let's move on to some more like visual oriented things that are a little bit more exciting to talk about and see. Straight away in the game, we're gonna hop to butterfly behavior. You're gonna see the butterflies just took a second over here to kind of like hop over and almost like hang out, maybe looks like they're landing or at least hovering next to the grave. And that is because they are now set up with something which is called an area of interest. So if we hop over to the butterflies, you can see this great big white ring, which is literally called its awareness area. Its awareness area is attached to certain objects that will exist in the game world, which I'm kind of setting up as a artificial intelligence of sorts to be like, hey, these are things I am interested in as this animal type or this NPC type. And this system, it was really important to me that I could make it super modular, so that for a variety of different types of, I mean, these are environmental NPCs, but a variety of different types of NPCs, they would have their own logic systems. Of course, the super obvious thing to end up implementing, to me, for little guys like these insects, it just makes the world feel a little bit more alive. And the next bit is, as you can see, that one just ran into me for a moment and then was like, oh, I'm getting out of here. So they do literally run away when the character gets near, and they get freaked out and try and go literally any direction that is not the player's direction. This guy gets stuck. He's hitting the fences, but let's go over to him. And he's gonna be like, nope. So yeah, the goal of the butterflies basically is to attempt to find something of interest to them. They are randomly wandering around the world, and if they come into a zone where there's something that they are interested in, they're gonna kind of act as like a little guidepost or just a beacon for the player to know, hey, this is potentially an interesting space, or at least a pretty space. So they might hang out around flowers. In this case, they're hanging out around the gravesite, kind of adding to the allure. I really like that, and it's kind of cool because I can reverse parts of the logic of that to create a leash system where they are buddies with the player too. I experimented with that, and it's really cute to go around collecting butterflies and having them follow you in a line. So that makes me think of almost like a Red Dead Redemption style honor system, where if you have high honor, maybe certain creatures that are environmental kind of have an attraction to the character. I thought that that would potentially be a really cool aspect to the game in the future and something to consider. So last time, one of the major bugs that I pointed out, which is hilariously small in hindsight, but at the time I was mentally struggling to overcome the hurdle of sorting out how I was going to fix it, was literally jumping through trees, and now I just feel completely stupid that I didn't immediately realize how to fix that. Of course, right now you cannot jump through trees, you can walk behind them, and they are functioning exactly how you kind of expect them to. Another cool thing kind of came from trees, and that's, you know, you guys have seen in the past how the grass wiggles as you walk through it, and I've talked a bunch about how I want the environment to constantly feel reactive to the player. I'm working with and sort of against the nostalgic aspect of a game like this, where it's pixel art, it's really basic, but I still want it to feel modern. And a part of how I can achieve that is just making the world feel lively and feel like it's reactive. Speaking of this alder tree, we'll call this one our special one. This is Alder Prototype A. And it's stupid how I'm going to display this, because in the future it'll use a different system, but much like the grass, if I run directly into this thing, boom, you can see the leaves wiggle. So let's do it again. Boom. It's so stupid. It's so goofy. Let me see if I can just trigger it a bunch of times, like I'm just hitting. Okay, so the leaves wiggle. You guys get the point. The whole idea of the system is not that you take your character and you run your head against a tree until the leaves move, but instead that eventually I'm going to have a wind system, which is attached to the larger overarching weather system. So it's going to be really important to me that like I had said a bunch of times, the environment feels lively, and a part of how I can do that, of course, is with weather. But I want other objects within the world to be reactive to weather. So with that in mind, having wind that kind of passes through and over the screen is really subtle. It will actually do things like move the grass, sway it, move the leaves of the tree and sway it. And this is the first experimentation of that system, and I think it's going to work, so I'm super hyped. So hopefully next time you're going to end up seeing that there is wind, potentially even rain, that does end up playing with the leaves of each of the trees and kind of moving the grass around, the flowers around, and everything like that kind of gets affected by the weather. So some other really quick subtle things that you may or may not have noticed, of course, is that correlating with the stamina bar, now the potions that were blue are yellow. Of course, we have red potions for health. These once were purple, but this makes way more sense to me for the moment. Not to say we won't have other colored potions, but I like these, I think, as colors for stamina and health. The next thing is straight off the interaction text that you see right here, E to interact stamina potion, does actually have a total different font. And that font to me is way easier to read, way more legible, and just really satisfying to look at in contrast to what it was. The inventory system has a label now that says inventory. Whether or not I feel like that's necessary, I'm not completely sure. Obviously, it's kind of self-explanatory. You know, anybody that uses the inventory system a couple of times doesn't need to be told every time that it is the inventory, but it's satisfying to look at. So you guys tell me what you think of that. I may or may not change the labeling system later on down the road. Other basic stuff I feel like I mentioned, but I'm not completely sure if it was mentioned last time, is, you know, once you run out of stamina, you can no longer run or jump. It prevents you from doing so. And if you're in the middle of a run, you can't like pick up items on the go. It prevents you from doing that. I actually want that to be a thing that I consider with people. I'm hoping to at least restrict, like, let's say, like more complex interactions to not be able to happen while you're running full tilt, instead that you have to walk up next to things to interact with them, but be able to pick up items on the go like really quickly with an auto pickup system for stuff like potions or maybe food or weapons, things like that. So those are currently in the game, and that system is working the way I want it to. These are things, again, that I just kind of, in my brain, I expect from an RPG, and hopefully you guys kind of feel the same as me. Otherwise, like, leave a comment and let me know what you think.
Okay.
So let's wrap this thing up with a little talk about the future. So the future of the game is, to me, looking really bright, and I'm very excited about the progress that I've made so far, because this part of the game has felt really, really slow to get through. I knew and was advised that the inventory system would be very, very slow and difficult to end up making, and now that it's done, I feel like a 10 times better coder than I was previously, and I feel like I can do things much faster than I could previously. So I'm very excited to take this thing forward, especially to more highly visual, exciting, you know, gameplay looking aspects of the game, making use of these modular systems that I've created already and hopefully benefiting from them. So ideally, the next set of updates will be a lot more exciting just to see. I know that this one was kind of slow in some ways, and I did a lot of talking, but let's look at like what immediately I'm going to try and play with. So I've got like my notes set here, and the first thing that I'm really looking forward to is actually sound. And in fact, I have this little guy to show you. This is my little Tascam field recorder. I've had this for years, and I've done sound engineering for years, and I'm so excited to get to pull this little guy out and just use this stereo mic again to get some of the fundamental sounds I really want in the game. And that's going to include things like, of course, the sound just idly of the forest, and the sound of your feet on different types of ground, so grass and dirt. All the things that you would expect to have sound and have satisfying little sounds hopefully will soon. And that will definitely be a part of the next devlog, the first set of sounds in the game. The next thing I already kind of mentioned, which is the wind and the beginning of the weather system. I really want that to take place, because that will be, I would almost think of it as like a parental system where everything kind of inherits from it a little bit or is affected by it a little bit. So it feels important to get that in early, and that's going to be one of the next things that I end up working on. So I want to kind of under-promise and over-deliver. So those are the two that I want to mention this time, and hopefully I will see you again much, much sooner. But before I go, I want you guys to know about my Discord. So if you want to join the Arigoth Discord, check out the link in the description. For the moment, you know, I don't know if it'll like become exclusive for some reason in the future. However, for the moment, I would love to end up having you guys join and just like hang out in there, give feedback, talk about anything you're excited about within the game development world, or even just game world in general. And I think that we have like a cool little community started there right now, and I would love to see you guys in there. So check out that link. Yeah, find me in there and let's chat. Other than that, you guys, just thank you for following along and checking out this project. I can't wait to get to a place where I can actually hand this game off to you guys and like have just a demo area for you to check out and get that live feedback of like, here is what it's like to play the game, here's why it sucks, here's why it's good, and really lean into the things that people like about it. It's going to be a really exciting process, and for me it's really gratifying. So I will see you guys in the next chapter of this little devlog series.